a call on your phone so you could join on your. So that's where we're at here. Like, okay, let's get a coach, and let's figure this out. Like, let's get down to the bottom of this.
Yep, I gotcha. Cool. All right. Before we get started and just hop into it, does anybody have any questions about anything in particular?
Oh, just tell us the God honest truth and how we can fix it.
All
We'll
right,
take it.
sounds good.
Yeah,
All right,
I mean, yeah.
let's yeah.
Honestly, you're not gonna spare anybody's feelings. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
fucking,
We're ready for it.
you're not saving nobody's feelings. So just fucking, just say it.
Yeah.
If I'm the anchor, say, hey, bro, you're the fucking anchor. Like, that's really what you got to do.
All right.
All right, let's
Sorry,
get this.
apologies. I don't know. You said stream or something, right? I'll watch my language. My bad.
It's just on Discord. Don't worry. There is a recording. I'm recording for you guys, but don't sweat it. All right, so let's hop into it. I'll be like a minute while I'm looking for stuff, but we'll probably just start talking pretty much from the get go. Honestly, for the first hour, because probably a lot of times with team coaching, for this first session, we're gonna be doing a lot of theory work of how do you guys actually function as a team. So we might not even get through one of these, but in the next session we'll probably get through more because we'll start to actually look at more of the gameplay.
I watched some of your YouTube yesterday, so I saw that.
Cool. Let's see. What? Just so I know, you guys are blue team. Is that? I see which you are.
Yeah, we're the blue team. Yep.
All right. Cool. Good info to know.
The Reaper, by the way, is not with us. He's random.
Okay. Random Reaper. Everybody else is on the same team. All right. Cool.
Sorry, bro.
Okay. They're sprinting in.
Yeah, and this is something we feel like happens a lot too. It's just like Hollywood is just like such a struggle map because here we are. They're rushing down the choke, and when it's reversed, we can't do that at all.
Yep. Okay. So
Yeah.
first thing I'm noting before we get into like any team play, Sim, you're just kind of really isolated from the team, so everybody else is backing off and giving space, which is kind of working at the moment. Reaper's tearing up their back line, but Symmetra was kind of just off on your own and kind of also out in the
Yeah,
open as
I
well.
didn't see they get pushed behind point right there.
Yep.
So I was just assuming we were trying to hold this corner, but we just backed up all the way.
Which then comes
And
partially down to like communication as a team to be on the same page, and then also on awareness to see like make sure you're keeping your eyes and ears open to know where your teammates are at all times, so that we're not getting split up and isolated. Because that's gonna be a part of team play is making sure you guys are on the same page as a team to be in the same place at the same time and whatnot. Okay, Mercy gets the res off, but dies in the process. You guys take some extra space. Okay, you getting picks still. Ults are gonna be coming up soon. Okay. Reaper dies.
Is there anything you would note with like our team? Because sometimes I feel like we like throw in comfort picks, but like we don't actually run like a synergy.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like our team do you feel like we overall mesh well?
So
like for me personally, I play tank. I feel like I can competitively play every tank with the exception of Doomfist because I think he sucks. But other than that, I feel like I can do everything.
Yeah.
So do you think like our team in the sense?
Yeah. Are you guys familiar with the 3 primary team compositions within Overwatch?
Dive, poke, and brawl.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So those are the 3 primary team compositions, and in every like if you have anything else, it's either gonna be like a variation of one of those, or it's gonna be or it's just if it's not a variation, it's gonna be like a hybrid of something. And knowing how those function into each other is gonna be very important. Knowing what maps they're good on is gonna be very important. Knowing what counters what is important. So would that be an interest, like a topic of interest to dive into for a minute?
So we know a lot of counter swaps already. Like,
Sure.
especially as a tank main myself, all I see is counter swaps.
Yep.
So like we know some counter swaps, but even sometimes I feel like they got a Zarya and a Junkrat, and they got a Diva and a Junkrat, and I'm Zarya because obviously Junkrat enables Zarya. Zarya is good for Diva. We're still getting rolled.
Yep.
Like there are situations when I'm the Zarya and they got a Diva and a Junkrat, and we're still fucking losing.
Yeah,
like it's
so
crazy.
You're thinking right now on the individual swapping level. I'm talking on the team composition level. So individual
okay.
swaps are important to understand, but then it's important to understand how team compositions work together. So why don't we quickly? I'm going to send you guys a chart real quick, and we'll just go over this chart. And this is just important to understand. Now, was everybody else on the same page when Prism was talking about dive, brawl, and spam? Is everybody familiar with those 3 team compositions?
I am. I don't know about our DPSs.
Is anybody not familiar with those?
See? You hear what I'm saying?
The other guy, old head, is even
asking.
yet. All right.
Well, in any case,
That's yeah. Sorry, coach.
And it all good, all good. So I sent it in the Discord if you guys see it at all. Sent a little chart. There are 3 team compositions, dive, brawl, and spam, and they all play separately. And it's important to understand and note their play styles, because their play styles will dictate when and where do you want to play them, how do they counter into each other, and how should you be playing your team composition. And this is all important for team play, because you guys obviously will be playing as one of these teams. So a dive composition, they will start far away, and then because dive characteristically has high mobility, so that's you're gonna be like Monkey, Genji, Tracer, Diva, characters like that, Lucio, other supports that can keep up with it, like Ana. And you start off far away, you dive in close. Your pacing can kind of differ depending on how you're playing it. You can either just hard dive and go from the get-go, or you can kind of take it a little bit slower, soft dive, and wait for picks or wait for ultimates, and then you can ramp it up on the speed. Brawl is brawl and spam, or poke is another word for spam. Very one-dimensional. Brawl is all close range characters like Reaper, Reinhardt, Junker Queen, Mei, Lucio to speed them all around, Moira, Baptiste, characters like that who do AoE healing. They all are a brawl, and therefore they want to play as fast as possible, because if you're sitting around, then you're kind of not doing very much. You're just sitting there, and the other team can shoot you at a distance that you can't shoot back from. So you need to be going and getting on top of them. And spam is the exact opposite of brawl. Spam is all of the far long-range characters, or at least mid to long-range characters. This is going to be any sniper characters, Sigma, Roadhog, Ramatra, and Orisa are kind of like half spam. You have Baptiste, Zenyatta, Mercy, all act as spam. Alari, right? All characters like
is Sigma spam? Sorry, did you say that?
Sigma is probably right now I would say is the sorry, I'm trying to think of a word here. Like the spam tank, right? There's a lot of like there's a lot of
because I Kobu those rocks.
Yeah. He can play a little bit brawly, and he's definitely not a dive character. And that's something to keep in mind, is that across all these characters, every character is going to fit into these compositions a little bit different. I actually have a composition. If you're ever interested, I also posted another one in here. If you wanted to ever look over it, that just kind of talks about which characters go good where, and how good they fit into each composition. This is my chart that I've edited. And then let's see. So we've talked about all that. Like I said, if you're ever on a hybrid, it's because you're not really running anything in particular, or you're kind of in between things. Typically, to identify what composition is being run, the character that has the most weight is the tank, because they are the one initiating engagements and taking space and making plays. So the tank typically you can maybe almost think of them like they're worth like 2 people in terms of what composition you're on. The DPS are the second most impact, and they're worth like 1 person. And then the supports are usually pretty flexible, not always, but can be pretty flexible. So they're kind of worth like half a character in terms of what composition you're running. So if you're running one brawl character or one brawl tank, a brawl DPS, a brawl support, and two spam and a spam support and a spam DPS, you're mostly in brawl. You're on a brawl comp for the most part because you're weighed heavily in brawl's favor. If you're like a brawl tank and two spam DPS and a spam support and a brawl support, like, well, now you're kind of like halfway in the middle. You're like on a spammy brawl comp. You're on a hybrid between the two, and that when you have to be really careful when you're just kind of running a composition that's all over the place, because now you have certain characters on your team that want to go 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 and get in on top of them, and then you have other characters that are just like sitting back and playing slow, and you're kind of pulling your team apart just naturally because you're playing with different objectives. So it's kind of important to play with a synergized team that's on the same page, or at least can synergize with each other and things like that.
I see what you're saying, and that is definitely something very good. Would you say our team right now is synergized,
Yeah.
or not really? Because we know
Yep.
sometimes Symmetra on here, Sim does work very, very nice.
Okay, gotcha. Let's get to that in a second after we're finished talking about
Oh, okay.
a few other
Oh,
aspects
okay.
of the
Sorry.
team play. All good, all good. And then we'll go into what comps you guys are running right now in the game. But
Sorry,
real
Coach.
quick, no, you're fine. Real quick, there's a quick rock paper scissors to these compositions. If none of you guys knew that yet, because they have they're not insurmountable barriers, but there it is.
Mic check.
Yeah, go
Hello.
ahead. Oh,
Okay.
hello.
Okay. I just want to make sure we got. Where the screen is frozen, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yep.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Oh my
Sorry,
God.
that's the oldest head of old heads right now that is time in.
Understood. Oh, okay. Thank you. Son
He's
of a-
1,000+
That is
hours. I
all.
don't know if you know that.
We're on the clock, guys. I'm sorry. That was no further question at the time. Thank you. Sorry, guys.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so the rock paper scissors between the three compositions are brawl has a natural advantage against dive. Since dive wants to get on top of you and likes to blow up squishy characters, brawl is just really tanky, and they want to play close. So if you're diving in on top of them, they kind of have the advantage, and they're usually pretty brawly and tanky, so they're harder to pick off by dive characters. Dive usually has a natural advantage against spam because spam wants to play far and slow, and dive can close that gap very quickly with their high mobility. And spam usually characteristically has some squishier backlines characters, and dive capitalizes on that and blows them up pretty quick. Spam has a natural advantage against Brawl because if Brawl wants to get fast and close and Spam plays far and slow, usually on most maps and in general, you kind of naturally start further away, which puts the win condition in Spam's court. So Spam kind of has the natural win condition. So that's the rough rock paper scissors. It's not an end all be all, but as a general rule of thumb, and you don't necessarily have to hard swap unless you just feel like it's not working. Or the other thing to keep in mind is maps and which maps are good for which compositions. Maps that work well
Okay.
for dive comps. Sorry, do you have something to say?
I did kind of have a little bit of a question there. So
Sure.
what if you feel like you're just like, so you said hard swaps aren't necessarily needed.
Yep.
Um,
Kind of depends.
so what if I feel like I'm just like enabling, right? So if they got a Zarya on the enemy team and I'm Sigma, I feel like I'm just straight up enabling that Zarya.
Mm-hmm. Well, kind of depends. Like, how well are you playing? Is it which map is best? Because sometimes maybe the map is a spam map, and Zarya is a brawl tank, so you might have the advantage on a spam character, against a Zarya because you have maps that are characteristic of spam, which I think spam has the most maps in the game that they're good on. Spam maps are going to be long, wide open sight lines with lots of horizontal high grounds, meaning they're kind of flat. They're not like crazy vertical high grounds, and they're spread out all over the place. So
Is Route 66 a spam map?
yes, except for maybe last point, like it's a little bit more brawly, but
okay.
still a bit spammy even on last point. Yes, there's a lot of long open sight lines on that map. So a character like example of this would be like Junkertown, Havana, Rialto, are all long open sightline maps for spam. Dive likes lots of very vertical high grounds. Because then they can just close the gap and jump, and they just have full control over the high grounds because they can get on top of them instantly. So think of like Watch Point Gibraltar. Very vertical high ground map. So spam can get value there, but dive just gets even more value than spam. And then Brawl likes really close quarters maps, which will be things like King's Row, or a lot of times control points can be pretty good for Brawl. Especially usually on each control point, there's like one or two of the maps they're tilted in Brawl's favor, especially. So you can think of like Lijiang Tower's control center, and things like that. Whatever Oasis University or whatever one is inside, things like that Brawl just particularly likes. Before we move to your team, that I'm done the spiel. So before we move to your teams, anybody have any questions on any of that?
Not on that.
No.
Okay. So I just jumped in because I was finished setting up, but you were just talking about the description of the settings first, what to be aware of, and the 3 comps we could play.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Pretty much the three main compositions in the game. Mm-hmm.
Yes, coach. I'm tracking.
He put it in the chat.
Yep, it's in the chat.
In the chat.
And then
Okay.
also, if you missed like the first 5 minutes and want to go back and record and see it again, I'll be posting the recording after we're done here, so you can just go back and look at the first 5 minutes.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, cool. So now getting back to the stream, and looking at your team composition. What team composition are you guys currently playing?
I want to say poke or spam. Sorry.
Mhm.
But that's really putting heavy emphasis on the tank.
Mm-hmm.
Hybrid
Yeah.
garbage.
That's me.
Hybrid garbage.
Hybrid Dookie garbage. Yeah. And there he goes again.
Yeah. So we can go through and we can like kind of analyze this, right? So Moira is mostly a brawl character, maybe like a little bit of diviness, but not really great with spam because she just doesn't have like range and sustain like other supports do. Kiriko, she's pretty flexible. She's good with dive. She's good with brawl. Her spam is also like okay, not as good as other supports. Like she can, but she's a lot of times prefers a bit more like her kunai are hard to land at ranges from enemies, and her kit just doesn't have enough to spam like a Zenyatta or Baptiste or Mercy does, or Ilari, where they can just do more sustain and have more value in a spam fight. So once again, Kiriko maybe not very much spam, more brawly or divey. What's Symmetra?
Symmetra, brawl.
Yep,
Yeah.
brawl, pretty much like not really spam, not really dive. Maybe like mild dive, but not great.
Map dependent, really.
Yeah, and then what's Reaper?
Brawl as fuck.
Yeah, brawl. Like once again, like maybe you could play with the dive a little bit, not really spam whatsoever, right? And then there's Sigma, who is spam, but then he also can be a little bit brawly. So Sigma's not the worst pick in the world because he can play a little bit brawlier. And this is a good like what? So if we were to look at this map, what kind of compositions would work well on this map?
Brawl
compositions.
Brawler,
sure.
dive.
You got high ground, so
Yeah.
Second point
kind of
Winston's good here too. That's true.
So dive usually does especially good on second point. First point is almost kind of anybody's game because there are brawly points at this point. There's high grounds for diving up on, and second point's good for dive, but dive is maybe a little hair weaker on this first point, but brawl's good here, spam's good here because there's high grounds and some choke points to push through. So honestly, his first point's pretty flexible. Second point, brawl is going to struggle a lot more with because of the fact that there are a lot of high grounds and long open sight lines. So brawl will struggle more here. Spam will get more value. Dive will get significantly more value because of how many high grounds there are. And then third point. What about third point?
Same thing.
Same thing to what?
Yeah, almost same as second. Second point.
Same as second. Yeah. Same as second.
No,
Yeah.
bro. No.
That top
dive
right
and
there,
choke.
Farrah's up
you'd be
there
getting
or Ash is
wrecked.
up there is fucking
Yeah.
more.
So on this third point, maybe like one issue with the high grounds is that they just give a little bit. They're like just not as good as second point high grounds. There's a little bit less visibility, and it's harder. It takes much longer to get to them. They're harder to drop down and contest from. Things like that. So the high grounds get a little bit less value than in second point. So the high grounds here are very pronounced. There's a lot of it. It's very easy to get to them. And it's all, and you can see everything from up there. These ones are a little bit weaker. And I'd say it's a lot tighter of a corridor as well area. So brawl gets definitely gets gets more value on this point. And then spam's gonna be all right. There is a lot high grounds and long ranges. I'd say dive gets the least amount of value here. Just because it's a bit tighter, and they're not gonna like the tight space and there's less flank angles. Or I think that's another thing that dive likes. Dive likes, I didn't say that before. Dive likes lots of high ground, very, very vertical high ground, and they like all the flanks to go left, right, and behind and everything like that. Here, there's not really that as much. There's like this, maybe like what you go here and maybe you come up here, and that's like those are your options. Not nearly as many as like this point where you have this corridor and high ground and this room and main and this side and this room and this room, right? There's so many rooms and corridors to go through. They get more value out of that. So, honestly, this map in general, I think is pretty flexible to where like you could make a lot of team compositions work. I don't know if one single team composition dominates most of this map. And that's actually pretty balanced, right? But so I think you just gotta stick on one of them and just run with it. So here, I think you guys are mostly on a brawly team composition with maybe your Sigma being a bit spammy. So that's just things to keep in mind. What composition are they on right now?
Team.
Brawl, I guess.
Yeah.
They got Sojourn. Sojourn's broken. They got a Ramatra. He's probably gonna want to get in my face, which I think he does actually in this game.
Yeah. So I'd say they're on Brawl with once again like a few spammy elements mixed in there, right? Like Sojourn's spammy, not necessarily Brawl, and the Ramatra is kind of like once again in that like Brawl spam hybrid where he has half of his kit that's go forward and punch, and half of his kit that's sit back and spam and shield. So he's kind of a weird mixture character. Right. Cool. So that's now that all that team comp stuff's out of the way. I don't think that you guys are on the worst composition ever because you're on a brawl comp, but you guys kind of have to play it like a brawl comp. I think that the Ramatra kind of has the advantage in the Ramatra versus Sigma matchup if you're playing them brawly. So that's where you might see struggling because if Sigma starts to play as a spam character, well, now the rest of your team loses out on value. But if you're playing up on the front line, well, then you're going to get run over by Ramatra. So that's maybe where you might see issues is the Sigma v Ramatra matchup, while also trying to play Sigma as a brawl tank. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because of the close quarters, yes, against Sigma.
Yeah.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Cool. So let's just keep going, and then we'll get into some more probably. All right. So, oh, sorry, lagging. So we're kind of split up. We have Reaper and Symmetra up on high. Apologies. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold, so I might have to cough once in a while.
All good.
All good.
Okay. So Sigma, make sure that you're watching the people up on high ground because we have 3 ticks left. We don't have to worry about contesting quite yet. And if we had all just focused the people who are up here, then maybe like Kiriko's able to stay alive. He might get a kill out of it, but dropping to
Just one frame over, I was just up there. I think I just got forced off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that happened fast. I remember.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next fight we'll start to see ultimates coming in.
So right here, I was telling them that we shouldn't went in, but went in, so we had to go in and cover for him. I was like, we should just stayed back and waited till we all together.
Yeah. So Reaper went in. Generally speaking, if you have just one person who makes a bad decision, it might just be good to let them do it and to start regrouping and take. So like I agree, trying to contest into that when you're just kind of staggering in is probably not a good idea. You don't have any significant, you don't have any kind of advantage. You don't have anything that you can really take back with. You don't have ultimates yet. You don't, and then you're just kind of trickling in one by one. So you're all like most likely. I mean, like sure, you have a 5% chance of winning, but it would probably be significantly better to back up, regroup, take high ground, and to get ready for this next fight than to try to contest here. So I would just let your Reaper die. And then start going and regrouping and taking high ground. You don't need to go and try to cover for him. If you had like 2 people who went and did it, or 3 people who went and did it, and you have like 2 people who are like sitting back and they're choosing, oh, do I go in, do I back up? Just do it, just commit to it, because if you're gonna lose the fight anyways because 3 of your teammates just ran in or 2 of your teammates just ran in, then just go try to do it with them, and maybe that 5% chance will happen, right? So if it's one person, let it happen. Back up and regroup. If 2 or 3 people do it, then just everyone commit. Just go for it. Do it. Same thing as like if you're like running into their spawn to chase down kills, like if one person on your team and this is an old saying by like an old coach of Overwatch, Jane. He said, if one person's feeding, or if one person's if one person's running into their spawn and feeding, that's called throwing. If an entire team's doing that, then that's called a strategy. Right? So if one of you guys is doing it, then and they're just running off by themselves into their spawn, let them do it and just try to win the 4v5. But if you have like half of your team who's going and doing it, then join them, and it'll be much more successful than if half your team's doing it.
Makes sense, coach.
Okay, cool. So here we can see it doesn't work out. Okay, so Vermont, there we go. Maga, make sure, and just in general for all of you guys, just to watch staggering. If you don't think that you can make it out successfully, like if it's not like a solid you can make it out, then you just let them kill you, so you're not staggering and then dying late and making your team have to regroup longer. So you guys now, because of both losing that fight and then having a staggered tank, probably like are giving up like a whole fight almost because of those 2 things on this point. So now instead of having two fights to hold, you have like 1 fight to hold here.
What's a staggered tank?
So the tank had just done this. So back here, the Maga had tried to. Oh, sorry, it's back further. So from this fight, the Maga tried to run away and then just got chased down by their team.
Oh yeah, because we caused that from the previous. Okay.
Yep. So Just be very careful about staggering. It just is not good because now your whole team's trying to engage and we're down a tank.
Understood. I see.
Okay, so now we're coming in. They have a lot of ults. We have a lot of ults. Let's see what happens. We'll probably end up talking about ults after this fight, but we'll see what happens with it, and then we'll get into it. Okay, so half the team's diving. So once again, now we're kind of running like a divey comp, but we're also on like Symmetra and Reaper, and so like we're a little disjointed, not like fully, but like it's not like perfectly on one composition. But you don't always have to be perfectly on one composition, especially if some of you aren't that flexible. But just pointing that out. Okay, so. Team's getting slashed up in the back. We use Kiriko ult. Okay. Okay, so in that last fight, we had lost to the blade. So generally with ultimates, in these fights, let's start to talk about some ultimate stuff. Because this is gonna be a big part of team play is communication with each other. So, do you guys generally talk about ultimates at all? What does that look like?
We do
Yes.
not.
So
None of us
no, we
ever
do. We
talk.
do try.
No, we
We do
don't.
call out what ultimates we have and like when they're coming up.
Mhm.
But when it comes to like synergizing them together, we
Mhm.
don't really do
I
anything with that.
initiate.
It's more like you got it, cool.
All right.
I have a renegade. I have an opinion that's different from that. When I play Kiriko, I say I got the fox and where I'm gonna use it at to line it up. I always mention that
Okay, gotcha.
intentionally,
Good.
so we
All
can know to get around it to get the cooldown faster and try to be considerate. That's all, coach.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about some stuff that will significantly upgrade how you guys think about ultimates and both thinking about enemy ultimates as well as your own ultimates. So this is where we're going to start to get into communication roles. So as a team, you have a key part of your coordination as a team is going to come down to communication, right? There's going to be other things like knowing the same stuff, being on the right composition, being positioned in the right places, but a massive part, the difference between a being like solo queued and ranked with a bunch of random people and being an actual team is how you guys talk to each other, because that's going to be one of the big differences between those two environments. And one of the big ways that you guys can talk to each other is by efficiently managing ultimates. So this comes down to three different things. There's going to be ult tracking, ult countering, and ult planning. And usually this comes down to about two different people who are going to take these as communication roles. Because if everybody's trying to do it, it becomes chaotic and it will be a lot more confusing and it'll probably happen less frequently. But if two people take the responsibility, then it should hopefully be more streamlined and happen more frequently. So let's get into what those look like. So the first thing is going to be ultimate tracking. Ultimate tracking is very important, higher level tool to learn how to do, because it prepares you for the ultimates that the enemy team is going to have. So ultimate tracking, how it works is in between each fight, as soon as the fight is ended, the person who will be the ult tracker is going to glance at the scoreboard, they're going to scan the enemy team composition, and they're going to think to themselves. They're going to think, what ultimates did they just use? So what did I just see or hear them use? So let's say, for example, they just use, let's look at their team composition, and let's say they just use Blade and they just use Surge and Ult. So we know that because they just use them, they won't have them for the upcoming fight, because generally speaking, ultimates take about 2 fights to charge. Right? You use them in a fight, you need to charge it up for the next fight, and then you get it back in the fight after that. And then you use it, and then it repeats the cycle, right? So if they've just used it, they don't got it. If they've just swapped, then that also means that they don't got it. And then if you're not really sure, then ask the team. Say they don't have these. I didn't really see Moira or Ramatra, and they say, oh, yep, they use Moira ult, because maybe you were dead or you didn't see it or yada yada, but somebody else did, so they call it out. They use Moira. Boom! Now you guys, through a process of elimination, have eliminated every other ultimate as a possibility besides the Ramatra, so therefore you know Ramatra has his ultimate. Why is this important? Well, it's very important to know what ultimates they have coming up in the fight, because it allows you to prepare for them. Either to have a plan against them if they're really big combos, or if you don't need a plan, just knowing that they're coming for a lot of ultimates is very valuable information. So for example, if you know that they have a D.Va bomb, you can play next to cover and get ready to get away from it, right? If you know that they have a soldier visor, same thing. You can just be next to cover, be ready for it. Being prepared for it lets you avoid it. Like just coming into the fight and not even thinking about it means that you're gonna get shredded by the visor, and then you're gonna be like, oh, they had visor, right? Which is just ill prepared, and you're gonna get rolled. Ult countering takes it a step further, and if they have, this isn't always necessary for every single ultimate, because some ultimates just don't necessarily you don't need to think about a counter, like Moira Coalescence. Just knowing that it's there, or about a Mercy Valk, right? Like you just knowing that it's there a lot of times is enough. But and you don't really need to come up with a plan against it. But bigger combos can a lot of times be good to think of a counter for. Or bigger ultimates. Or let's say for a Mercy, right? Like a counter for like a Mercy Valk could be like, oh, they have Valk. Let's save our soldier's visor or the McCree High Noon for it, right? You can easily melt the Mercy in her Valkyrie. But let's say, hypothetically speaking, they have a Nano Blade, right? Big combo, could wipe your whole team out, and if you didn't know it was happening, then you're just gonna get rolled, and you didn't even have any plan against it. But even if you knew it's coming, it's not gonna help just knowing it's coming. You need to have a plan of how to stop it. What are some hypothetical? You don't have to don't just think with the characters you're running right now, but just generally speaking, what are different ways that you can counter a Nano Blade?
Ana, sleep him.
Ana, sleep him. That is very skill shot. I wouldn't necessarily rely on that as a plan, though, because of how difficult the skill shot is to land. It certainly is an option, and I would try it, but might be good to have other things in mind.
A Reinhardt charge. That's hard too.
Yeah, you can charge him, but once again, like that's a little. It's hard to pull off. It's inconsistent.
Good.
What do you think?
Crickets in here.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Stunned? I don't know. Brigitte the shield?
Yeah,
Run away?
Yeah, running away. I mean, like, so that's if you had like no other option, just like stay very like just everybody back up and be ready for it, and just look at them. Right, there are different options. Is an idea.
Why would you say that? Okay, no, it's okay.
But
a nano. Okay.
Go ahead.
The question is a nano blade, right?
Oh, I mean, you could counter ult the same thing, like nano someone else. Then they got
visor would work.
Think about that too. Yeah, if you nano visor someone else, and it's like
try them
to nano their nano, and then it's like okay.
Oh, I know it. Orisa. The spiral thingy.
Orisa sucks. I don't know.
Well, that's what we got the coach. Thank you. Don't judge here.
So I guess you guys are now starting to get along the right track. If you think about it, really, like a third of the ultimates in the game are pretty good at countering a Nano Blade. So you have simple things, right? I'm surprised nobody even thought of like Transcendence or a Lucio beat. Or other things could be like saving support
We don't
ability.
play those characters, that's why.
I do play them. I want to play them. See, I told you we got a maniac in this group chat, T Boogie, and you hearing her, bro. You she is the leader of the pack.
So other things could be like intentionally saving supportive abilities. So saving Zarya bubbles, saving a Baptiste lamp, saving Lucio's amp speed to run away, saving Kiriko's Suzu for it. Things like that. Saving all of your abilities for it is another thing to think about. More ultimates that can counter it besides just those defensive ultimates are things like Reinhardt Shatter. You have Zarya's Grav. You have Sigma's Flux. All of which are able to. Roadhog's Whole Hog can boop him away, so he's not able to get value. You have Junkrat Tire is able to one-shot Nanoblading Genji, right? So lots and lots of different options here that are able to successfully get the Genji off of your team and stop him from getting value. And all those would be like one ultimate to stop two ultimates and save your team. So coming up with that plan, great idea to be able to stop it from happening. Other things like other big ults to be thinking about could be like Zarya Grav with literally anything. Zarya Grav combos with everything, or Sigma Flux combos with everything. Or Orisa Ultimate potentially combos with everything. So those could be big ultimates to think about a plan for. What is a easy way to counter? Oh, my rendering device has been lost. Application closing. Hello, do you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Sorry, my Overwatch just died, so let me get that back up. Maybe it is my overclock going. Let me turn that down. All right. Sorry, let me get that back up. All right, so other big ultimates to watch out for will be like a Zarya Grav with combo, Orisa Pulse. So, what is a common thing that you can do as a team? It doesn't take ultimates, it doesn't take abilities. You can do this as a team, and it's a counter to Grav. Is a counter to Flux, it's a counter to Shatter, it's a counter to Orisa Ultimate, it's a counter to Junkrat Tire.
Spreading out.
Exactly. Spread out as a team. Don't stand on top of each other. If you guys are all on top of each other, you're going to get rolled by all of the big AoE ultimates, which is a lot of them. If you're grouped up, you will get rolled by all of the above. So an easy way to counter them is just stay split. And that can be a call out that you can make and remind everybody, stay split this fight. They have a Grav Pulse, right? Things like that. So communicating it is really important. The ult countering, I might recommend being a part of the ult planner's job, which I'll go over ult planning in a second. Traditionally, ult tracking goes to one of the supports, usually like the main support, because they supports see a lot of the fight and aren't on the front line, so they get to see what's happening. They are some of them, like, so the main support is like the person who plays like Lucio, Mercy, Brig, characters like that, a little bit less mechanically demanding, so they have more attention to, theoretically, more attention to put onto other things like ult tracking. So my recommendation when we get to all of these, we're gonna be talking about a lot of different communication roles, is just see who it works with best. It doesn't necessarily have to be the support. If the support's not comfortable with making those kind of call outs, maybe try some other people, try a few games with them doing it, see how well they do it, and then maybe try somebody else, see how well they do it, and just go from there, and then assign it to somebody so that they can be the one consistently doing it.
We tried that before, and it's like, hey, we're calling out all these things, but nobody is like, we all are understanding, but it's not clicking, if that makes any sense. Hey, he probably has Shatter, let's not get next to each other. Okay. Immediately shatters, and we're all dead.
Yeah. Well, that is then therefore the like application putting it into practice, you'll need to make sure that you're actually paying attention to the person who's calling things out. And you need to just keep practicing it, because you're not going to be able to, if you probably aren't going to be perfect at it the first time you try to put it in to implement it. And just because you're implementing it and nobody's listening doesn't mean it's not a good way to go about communication, because it's going to be still better than if you said nothing at all. But hopefully the team will eventually, as you practice and work at it, listen to the call out, and then as you listen to the call out and the Sigma's like, oh, let me just shield it, and then now you got to shield for the shatter, right? Because the Sigma is now paying attention to the Reinhardt, whereas maybe they weren't paying attention before, right? Things like that. When you're sure, we can take a quick pause to talk about application. When you guys are trying to put things into practice, make sure that you're actively focusing on the things you're trying to work on. Don't just come in and play to play. Don't autopilot. Have something as a team that you're intentionally trying to improve upon and focus on it. So, for example, if you're trying to work on callouts, now callouts might be theoretically more individualized, but still,
real quick. Sorry.
yep,
Your mic is kind of cutting out in a little bit. It's
it's cutting
like,
out.
yeah,
No, I heard him clearly.
you guys
It's
hear?
not
Is it
cutting
just
out for
mine?
me.
Just mine?
But
Okay, sorry, my
No,
bad.
all good,
Continue.
all good, all good. All right, so make sure you're actively focusing. So if you're thinking, for example, about ult tracking and ult planning, you're gonna be you guys are gonna be thinking to yourselves, ult tracking, ult planning, ult tracking, ult planning. What else do they got? What else do they got? What else do they got? And things like that, right? Just giving yourself a constant stream of reminders to think about it. And when you're constantly thinking about it, it'll come much more smoothly and more naturally. And if you do that consistently, it forms it as a habit. And then once it forms as a habit, then you're gonna be performing better. Also, don't try to do everything all at once, because if you try to, because we're going to be talking about like 7, 8 different topics here, and if you're trying to do everything as a team, then nothing's going to get done. So focus, really hammering on one category of things, or 1 to 3 smaller things within a category, and nail it down, and then move on to the next thing and nail that down and work on the next thing. All that makes sense?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Cool. Now continuing to ult planning. So the ult planner's job is to tell your team, these are the ultimates we're using this fight. There are 2 primary reasons why you would want to be calling out what ultimates you want to use in a given fight. What could those be?
So we're not just spamming all of our ultimates all at once and still lose the fight. Us.
Yep. So avoid over ulting, or on the contrary, avoid under ulting. So either ulting, everybody's ulting when you don't need to, or nobody's ulting when you should have. Right. So yes, certainly. And then maybe like one more reason. I think you guys mentioned it earlier.
Either to contest like points or counter other teams' ults.
Being proactive on the ults to do it
So
first.
being proactive and not just like reactive, and those are both good answers. Those are good side point answers where generally speaking, as a general rule of thumb, ults that are used first get more value than ults that are used second. So for example, if both teams have a grav and team A grabs team B first, then and you get value with it. Let's say you have a grav combo and you get immediate value and you get like 2 kills out of it, and then they grab second. Well, now you might have killed who they were trying to combo with, and they have less people to shoot into the grav now. So the first grav inherently gets more value. That's not an end-all be-all statement. Sometimes it will depend on just like the second one could be significantly better. If the first grav only hits 1 person and then the second grav hits 5 people, obviously the second grav is better. So there's sometimes it's not going to be as straightforward as first or second, but it's a general rule of thumb. So there's that, and then there was I forget what the other thing said was.
Contesting a point.
The reason for the last reason for ult.
Okay, yeah, contesting. It's not necessarily contesting is a way that you can use an ultimate, not necessarily a function of ult planning though. So ult planning, the last one is comboing ultimates together and making sure that you're
Oh,
successfully doing that. Because if you guys are just coming into fights and not really thinking about it, then you might easily have a fight go by where you had the ability to combo ultimates and then you just didn't. So in the team that you're on, you don't really have any combos. What about when you had a Sigma? Did you have any combos when you had a Sigma?
Yeah. You could have reapered that or coalescence or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
to finish them off.
Yeah. So pull
but
them
we
all
know
up.
we did it though. Yeah.
Yeah, pull them all up and coalescence, or pull them all up and reaper ult. Right now, what is a combo that you guys have on your team?
My combo is Kiriko alt, just so whoever want to use it with their special.
He's talking. No, he's
Not a
talking
fucking
about
combo.
together.
Yeah, ultimate combos.
I don't
That
know.
is, I'm not lying. For real, I use that for because you guys can use one individual could do it here. I tend to use my Kiriko faster
he's
in a
he's
better part.
asking who. Okay, if
Who
you're
would
gonna
you
say
combo with?
Kiriko, who? Yeah, exactly. That's who he's asking.
I was gonna
Does
say
does
T.
Kiriko ult combo with Symmetra Wall?
Hell no.
No,
No.
no,
Does it combo with a Monkey Primal?
Maybe.
not primarily,
Not really.
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not directly. No,
He'll swing like maybe a hair faster, but probably not too much.
and
Um,
he'll go further out. Yeah,
will it combo with Moira Coalescence?
Mm-hmm.
Moira.
Could she'll move
Yeah,
faster, even faster. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Should damage faster and heal
Yeah,
faster. Yeah.
so like there's a minor combo there. I don't think it's gonna be like super crazy, but still that's still pretty decent. What about Blossom?
Could. Yeah.
Nah,
Maybe.
He is the random, but
Shoots
yeah.
faster, right?
that's Blossom.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah. So he is the
Yeah,
random.
definitely
So
shoot off faster.
yeah, so he is the random, but team comp speaking, that would be a really good combination for your team to
Mm.
pull off. If they're all grouped up in the same area, then it significantly will enhance the Reaper Blossom.
Understood.
All right, cool. So the ult planning is a role. So how I didn't even say how you do it. Ult planning, generally, you're going to want to say, right after you've talked about what ultimates they have, you can add the countering into this, but you're going to basically say, we're going to use these ultimates this fight. Generally speaking, I would recommend use in a normal fight. You're gonna use somewhere in the ballpark of like 1 to 3. It kind of depends. It'll depend on how many ults do they have. If they're coming to this fight and they are using 0 ultimates, you might only need 1 to win or 2 to win, right? If they're coming, you certainly don't need 5 ultimates to win if they're not using anything, but it's no longer over-ulting if they're using 5 ultimates. If they're using 5 ultimates and you need to use 5 ultimates to win, well, then it's not really an overult because you're just matching them. So, matching them, and so if they've used 3 ultimates, maybe you need to use 4 ultimates to secure the victory, right? That's an idea. Sometimes if you got no ults, and you need to be able to a strategy that you can do is actually called dry fighting, where you come in and you intentionally don't use any ultimates because you have 1 ult and they have 5 ults. So you're like, okay, we're not gonna win this fight. Let's just try to do it as quickly as possible and try to bait out as many ultimates as possible. So now if you come in and you use 0 ultimates, or let's say you maybe use, I say usually use 0. You come in and use 0 and they use 2 ultimates. Well, now you've just gone from a fight where it's 1 to 5, and then the next fight maybe you'll be like 4 to 3, right? So now you've just rebalanced the ult economy. So call out, we're using these 2 ultimates, call out the combo. So maybe in this fight, you'd say, let's use Reaper Kiriko ult. And then you can also put conditions on things. So say, okay, and we'll use more coalescence is as needed, right? Like if the fight's going a little south, use it, right? And we don't use it if you've lost the fight or if you're at a very significant disadvantage. But if it's starting to tilt into a disadvantage, okay, go ahead, use it. That way we can tilt it back in your favor. And
Excuse me.
that's a lot. And then also add countering into it. So maybe you say, oh, they have a nano blade. Let's use Sigma Flux to counter that. And then we're going to use Death Blossom afterwards to finish him off. Something like that, right? So you're basically, this is a little bit more complicated. It'll depend on the situation, kind of how you do it. There's no like exact formula that I can give you because it will depend on a lot of different factors. Ult tracking is very much more straightforward, and there is it's very straightforward. This isn't as straightforward. It'll very much depend on everything else that's going on in the game. Any questions on any of it?
You said that role, like the ult tracker and everything.
Yep.
Can be anyone.
Yeah, so the ult tracker could be anybody. I would probably not recommend having the tank ult tracking, because they usually can have a thinner sight line because they're not seeing anything that's happening behind them. And also, a lot of times the tank has more of a shot caller role where they're calling when the team's pushing, when the team's backing, where you're going, things like that, which will that'll if you're giving somebody too many comm roles, that just gets confusing. So I'd keep it maybe 2 supports and then maybe the DPS. But also they can sometimes get really distracted in duels and 1v1s, and if the Tracer's in their backline, then they're also not paying attention as much to ults. So like I said, support's generally a bit more better for this. Ult planning, I think traditionally this one is a lot more up in the air. This one can kind of go to anybody because anybody can do it as long as they're good at it. I just wouldn't give it to necessarily to the same person who's doing tracking, so that you're not overloading everything on somebody, to see who does this best. And yeah, just see who do you guys think is most responsible for managing ultimates. Any other questions?
Nope, it's good.
No, all right. Let's talk about target calling real quick. So obviously I can't hear your comms while you're playing here.
You'd be embarrassed if you heard it.
I gotcha.
Now when you hear my voice,
So if you guys have ever listened, so any of you ever watched like Overwatch League or anything like that when it was still going on, or
Yeah.
any high level play?
Yeah.
So
They talk to each other all the time.
Yeah, they talk to each other all the time. If you ever hear their call outs in the middle of a fight, it sounds pretty chaotic, and most of the time, all they're doing is they're calling out the name of who they're shooting at. So you'll hear it, and you hear Ryan, monkey, Reaper, Kiri, Moira, Ram, right? And they're just spamming that like the entire time during a fight, right? And the functionality of that is that it gets everybody to look at the exact same character and shoot at the same thing. If everybody's looking at their own character and shooting at their own thing, then everything's going to be inefficient. You're going to be taking 1v1s. You might be able to win them, but it's going to be a lot less efficient than if all of you look at one thing, you shred them down, you look at the next thing, and you shred them down. They're going to die a lot quicker, especially when you're in fights. Good. What you say?
Coach, so I usually say that, hey, we need to start focusing. Let's do this. Or anybody will say it on the team.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, hey, this person's won. And then all you hear is, oh, I can't.
Yep. So
how do you combat that?
So this is why one thing I would recommend. So who's the tank on your team? Who's Funky Monkey?
Me.
You. Okay, cool. So one thing I would recommend is, generally speaking, I would recommend putting this role. So I would recommend having this as a comm role, because if you have everybody chipping into it, then it gets confusing as to who you're shooting at. Like if you have 3 different people who are trying to call targets, then they're all calling different things, and then no one knows who to look at, right? But if you have one person who's saying it, then you will be able to much more efficiently focus on something. Generally, I would recommend this being the tank because the tank is usually on the front line. They are usually in the most neutral place where they can see everybody. DPS are kind of gonna a lot of times can be like flanking and off doing their own thing, and supports a lot of times aren't doing enough consistent damage for them to be the one shooting at something. But tanks usually have very consistent damage, so they're constantly shooting. They have very easy to land damage. They're on the front line. Everybody can kind of group up and shoot at what the tank's shooting at. The only thing to be careful of is the tank can sometimes have the biggest problem of like only ever shooting at the enemy tank. So you got to be careful of that and target priority of making sure you're not exclusively just trying to shoot at the tank. But the tank, I'd say, generally has is the best for this position, and then maybe I would do like a DPS if they're not like a flanky DPS. Um, and they're not like a Widowmaker, right? Like if you're running like a sniper, that can also be hard to call targets. But if they're like soldier or I don't know what another DPS sojourn, like who's consistently damaging kind of from the front, they might be a bit better for it. So and then like I said, one person, all be on the same page. Have them do the call out the targets and everybody else can kind of join in on it and echo call, and that affirms that they're also shooting at that person or trying to look for them, and gets everybody else to listen and be on the same page. So if the target caller is calling Moira, 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 and then now the Reaper's going for Moira, the Reaper's saying Moira, 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 Moira. Then yeah, you just want to basically be on the same page of who you're shooting at, and having the role distinguished. And people, like, once again, like, you guys got to make sure that you're actually, once you start doing it, actually listen to the person and get used to listening to the person and not just everyone doing their own thing all the time, and you'll be a lot
Yeah,
more successful
I got
that
you.
way. Right? Any
That
questions?
You know
that
what?
makes sense. Yeah, that's good.
No, coach,
That's
thank
true.
you. Can we make a vow, Muniz? You're gonna have to be that caller because you're annoying and your voice. We have to learn how to listen to you.
Well, I'm the tank, so
Well,
we'll figure this
tank.
out later.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, next role, Muniz.
All right.
Mister
Yep.
Mister Support. I mean, alt tracker. You okay? I don't want to hear it, Baptiste.
Okay, fair.
All
That's
right.
all, coach.
Yep. So those are big comm rolls. You also have like comm rolling of like shot calling, and so this once again like kind of goes to the tank in terms of like shot caller is someone who will be the one to call out like where teams going. So pathing. So okay, guys, gonna approach the point from the left side and this flank. We're gonna go from the right side. We're going in now. 3, 2, 1, go, 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 go. Back up, back up. We're losing, something like that, right? So like that's kind of like the shot caller role. Traditionally, once again, goes to the tank because the tank a lot of the times is the one initiating engagements. They're the one pushing and backing. So therefore, oh excuse me. Therefore, they are the one kind of in control of that a lot of time. That makes sense. That's not as complicated of one. Any questions on that?
No. So you think two roles is okay? Two com roles per person?
So 2 rolls is okay for that, just because they're smaller comm rolls. Ult
Okay,
tracking and ult planning are kind of like bigger things and harder to manage than just calling out names. Because all you got to do with target calling is just yell who you're shooting at, and hopefully
fine.
you're shooting at the right things. That's like the next step, is making sure you're actually shooting at the right things, and having good
Okay.
target priority. But as long as you're like calling the things that you're shooting at and you're shooting at the right things, then that's not too difficult to do. You just call the name like who you're shooting at. So you can also,
Okay.
on top of that, yeah, you can the shot caller can be the one too. But that it maybe be a lot for somebody if they were the target caller, the shot caller, and the ult planner. That might be a lot unless they feel really comfortable doing it. Um, that might just be a hindrance to have too many things on that one person.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Understood.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then another smaller one. So this one could tack on to one of the other ones. I just, once again, I wouldn't give them all to one person. But another thing as well is calling the person who's calling. I don't know if I have a term for this person. The one who's calling who's won or lost the fight and the status of the fight. So this gets into another topic of how do you tell whether or not you've won or lost the fight, and having someone call this out is very important so that you can all be on the same page. This will stop you from over ulting. It'll stop you from under ulting. And it'll stop you from staggering and things like that. Um, and if somebody's calling this out consistently. So how do you tell whether or not you've won or lost a fight? This comes down primarily to kill feed, which we can't see here at the moment, but on the top right corner of your screen, you see who's up, who's down. There's also, if any of you weren't aware of this, if you go to your sound settings, there is a play sounds when teammate is eliminated and play sound when enemy is eliminated, which is basically an auditory kill feed. So if you're ever interested, you can enable that. Basically, how this will work is you watch kill feed, and everybody should do that. Everybody should be implementing this, but one person should be like the main person calling it out. Like with all of these things, if all these roles, if anybody ever has something to input, go ahead and input it, as long as you're not constantly overbearing the like on the roll. Like if you're constantly calling out a different target from the target caller, or you're constantly saying, "Oh no, we should do this ult plan," then you're gonna have a problem because you're obviously getting mixed signals and no one's gonna know what's happening and yada yada, right? The chain of command has been ruined. But it's also not a bad thing if once in a while you go, oh, we should use these ultimates, and then you go, oh no, I'm in a perfect spot to use my ult. Let me use my ult. Right? It's not the end of the world if somebody does that. And it's also not the end of the world if you're saying, if the target caller's calling Ramatra, and then you say Genji's one, right? Because now you're calling out that somebody's 1 HP, so everyone look at that person, right? But if that's all it is all the time, then it gets chaotic and confusing. So just be careful about how you're doing that. Target. So now we're back to how do you tell whether or not you won or lost the fight. Watch kill feed. If you are up or down 1 or 2 people, that is a 1 fight, or sorry, not I'm mixing it up. If you're up or down 1 or 2 people, that is an advantage or a disadvantage. That means that you either can push in more aggressively or back up, play a little bit more passive. It's not won or lost yet, right? It's just advantage or disadvantage. If you're up or down 2 to 3 people, that is a 1 fight or a lost fight. In which case, if you've won, you just go and clean them all up and stagger them. If you've lost the fight, you want to make sure that you get out if you can, and if you can't, let them kill you so you don't stagger. And then you also don't want to ever use ultimates in won or lost fights. And that's like the main one of the big things. Why it's important to call it out is so that you're not misusing ultimates. You're not accidentally pushing back into a fight that's already lost. You're not going in without your team. Things like that. So the person who, let me do other intricacies of this. So you might have noticed that I said 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3. So the reason why 2 is in the middle is because there are a lot of other aspects of the game, other advantages and disadvantages in the game. So they're going to be things like which team has more health, which team has better positioning, which team has closer spawns, which team has more ultimates, more abilities, things like that. Right? And those will also impact the flow of a fight. And so if you're coming in, let's say you're in a fight and you are down 2 people, if you had no other significant advantage, that would be a lost fight at that point. You're down 2, and they just have such a advantage that's lost. But if you had another significant advantage that could weigh in your favor, then it's not necessarily lost yet. So for example, let's say you're down 2, but their whole team's 1 HP. Well, might be winnable. We'll see. You could get like 3 kills in a second, right? Or let's say that you are down 2 and you have a big ult combo you can use, or your spawn is like right next to you, or things like that. Or you have like 3 ultimates and they have nothing, right? Things like that. right? So other things will also impact this. All right, excuse me. If so, that's the how to tell whether or not you've won or lost a fight. So the person calling this out, generally how you'd say it is communicate the most urgent part first. Say no ults, fight, and then say why the fight has been won. And then explain why, because we're up 3 people, right? So how you'd say it is no ults, we've won, we're up 3. Right, and or no ults, we've lost, we're down 2 people, right? Things like that can help the team be on the same page. Once again, like this could be to really anybody. Generally, supports could find this best since they're in the back and they can see the whole fight and monitor this best. So having a support do this would be good. Just don't put like 3 I wouldn't really put more than 2 comm rolls on somebody unless they felt really, really comfortable with it. And make sure to give this to somebody who you're all on the same page as being like pretty perceptive, and this role needs perception and ability to actually well define when the fight's won or lost, because this is really good, but if you give this to somebody who's like actually telling you that you've lost the fight when you are down like 1 person, well, then you might start to run into problems. So be very be careful with it.
Okay.
Any questions?
Do you? I don't. I like that. What's that one called?
I don't know if I have a name for that one.
Tracker?
Just like yeah, I mean fight tracker. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if
I do that when I hit select. I know what you're talking about, top
Mhm.
right of your screen. Maybe I
Yep.
could reset that setting and get used to it again. But is there any slower process hitting select and it pops up? You see
Oh,
everyone's dead on your screen, so you can count. That's
oh,
how I usually do it.
so are you talking about hitting it where you see the scoreboard?
Yeah, scoreboard. Yeah,
So the scoreboard can be
you
a
can
way that
see
you
who
can see
dies.
it. Yeah, so the scoreboard can be a way to see it, but on the top right corner of your screen, it should show it at all times while you're playing.
The kill feed.
So the kill feed, yeah, the kill feed will show when people are up and when they're down and when they're dying. So both are ways that you can do that, and if you need to rebind your scoreboard to something that's more accessible, and rebind it. Excuse me, I have to cough.
Also, the reason why I also dictate if the fight is lost because of the cooldown of the respawning and where the location is
Yeah,
to
that's another
see if
thing to keep track
whoever
of.
character. Yeah, because that's why if I know if Kiriko or anybody that has fast pace or Lucio is coming back around, I know we could buy some time depending what it looks like.
Yeah,
Because you like
yeah,
you're saying these calls are like momentarily, right? Like seconds,
yeah.
or maybe under 2 seconds.
Yeah, so sometimes
Of
like
it
yeah,
one
so
is the one
sometimes it
loss.
could be like it could be something as nuanced as like we're down 2 people, back up for a second, we're getting Lucio back in like 3
Yeah,
seconds, right? Like, and so don't go yet, we're getting
yeah,
Lucio back soon. Right? Like something like that where you're just waiting to get your player back for a second, so you're playing more passive. So you could make that
yeah.
kind of call out as well and say we're at a disadvantage right now, play passive until we get Lucio back. Right?
Good pass.
That'd be like a
All right,
call out you can make.
that
Right.
makes sense.
That is right there is pretty much the extent of call outs for your team. Like I said, maybe try not to do every single one of those all at the same time because that might be a bit much, especially if you're trying to figure out who's doing what. So maybe start with like 2 of them or something like that and assign them, try them out, see how it's going. If you need to, reassign them, and then from there you can move. Once you've kind of nailed those down a little bit more, then you can move on to a next thing. And don't expect it all to go perfectly immediately because you guys are going to be getting used to it. So if it takes you a second to get good at it, expect that. Right? Make sense?
Oh, yes, it does. I got a short memory span, but I was wondering if you guys want to make a selection now so we could remember if
We'll do
anybody
that.
want to do two things
We'll do
now.
that after this.
We might forget. That's what I'm trying to say. We could just do 2
I
All right,
have it
points.
we'll
down.
we'll, we'll
I
talk
wrote it
about it
down.
after.
Okay.
Cool. Sounds good. So let's see. Let's keep going for now, and then maybe let's see. What are other general topics we can cover? Maybe before we keep going. There is general. I'm just gonna throw some things out there, and if anything rings any interest, then let me know, and we can kind of cover it. There's general positioning. There's general awareness. There is. Trying to think of what other. See, I mean, there's more, a little bit more in depth positioning on choke points and no man's lands. There's aggression scaling about when to push and when to back. There is, I'm trying to think about other team topics. And then I'm sure they'll probably think of something else as we go. Any of those ring any bells, or we want to just keep going and see what comes up?
I mean,
Positioning.
Yeah, I mean,
No?
positioning is always a key for us, but I mean, we'll see. I mean, that's going to come up as we keep going.
Sure.
Well, that's what he just asked us if you want to talk about it now, right? No?
I mean, I'm down for whatever.
We could go later too. Is that okay for us to do it later, Coach?
Yeah, we can do it later. Another thing, like we can just like if we cover it now, then we can like also see examples of it as we go through. But like, why don't we'll just take a look for a minute and we'll just see what comes up next. Okay, so we are down somebody. Our Symmetra's all the way back on cards. So now we're on this point. This point is probably like I think I said this before, the worst point for Brawl because of all the high grounds. They can still make it work, but we're kind of split. Like just look at like we have Monkey on high ground who's jumping in. We have everybody's just like all over the place, right? So think about how like you're all on different targets. Like Monkey's diving for their back line, but everybody's just sitting. Everybody else is sitting back main. Okay, ultimates. They are coming up on Moira, which you don't really have to worry about too much, and then nothing else really. So you wouldn't have to worry about countering anything. And then on your team, you don't really have any combos, and you have 2 ults. So really, this fight would be pretty simple. This might be pretty simple about just having a monkey ult and Moira ult. That's pretty much it.
So would you say here that I'm in the wrong for my positioning here for being all the way over there, or is my team wrong for abandoning me?
Honestly, sometimes it's like both. I think that all of these guys, all of you guys should probably be on the high ground right now. There's no reason to be on low at the moment. And that's just giving up a positional advantage by being on the low ground rather than the high ground. Generally speaking, this is part of positioning. General positioning is high grounds are really good for you. High grounds all act as natural cover. So look, they can see you, now they can't see you. They can see you, now they can't see you. Right? So they all act as not all, right? So this one doesn't really do the same thing. But if most of them do, as long as you're using them properly. If you're just sitting here on the edge and you're never backing up, then you're not using it properly. But if you're backing up away from the ledge, acts as cover, that's more survivability. Also, 2/3 of the characters can't really get to you without taking the stairs. And then the other third that can get to you, a lot of them need to use abilities. So that's an additional layer of survivability because you are able to stay away from people a lot easier. Also, you have tons of... Yep.
Sorry. I used to preach, say, take the high ground. And I would be the only one going to the high ground. And then I would just get absolutely rolled. And they'd be like, yeah, because 2 people went up and fought you. It's my fault because you were in a bad position. And I'm like, the position we needed to be is in the high ground.
Yep. So,
but you guys are all on the ground.
I mean, it's funny we're watching a video and you're not on high ground.
What am I really
Sometimes
gonna
I'm
do
playing
there?
like Sigma. I can't get to that high ground.
I'm gonna shoot little pebbles and do nothing with Symmetra.
But sometimes I'm
We just gotta
playing
get more
Zarya. It's
comfortable
like
with it.
unless I'm walking over to the stairs, there's no way I'm getting there.
So let's talk about a few of those points. So lastly, before we get to all that, is high grounds are also fantastic, phenomenal because of the visibility in which it gives you. You can see from this high ground, you can see all of over here. You can see all of over here. You can see all of this high ground. If you are on the low ground here, you cannot see any of that side, and you can't see any of that high ground, right? So you lack visibility and angles. So let's talk about a few different things that were just said, right? So being grouped up, yeah. So yes, if you have one person on this kind of gets back to that same thing. If you have one person doing something that's good, but they're doing it alone, it can end up being bad. So if you're the one person, so like for example, like hypothetically speaking, like oh sorry, it's I guess somebody disconnected. Let's
Yeah, that
say
was our fifth. Sometimes.
so let's say that it is better for your team for you guys to stand back on this corner. But if you're the only person standing here and the rest of your team is standing here, then you are now, even though that spot was good before, this spot is now bad for you to be standing in because your team is not on the same page. So that's one thing, is even good things can be bad if you're doing it alone and then getting punished for it. Now, taking high ground alone is not always bad. Like if you're not getting contested, and they start to contest you can just back up and drop off high ground, right? And run back to your team. But it's also probably important that all of you take high ground. Especially the great thing is you want to, in between fights, take the most superior positioning. So because you have like 10 to 20 seconds between those fights, you want to take the time to set yourself up in the best positioning possible for the next fight. So that means that you're not like you also want to be careful that you're not setting up on a high ground that's obsolete. So like why would you position on this high ground if the fight's happening like over here? Right, you gotta be careful about that. But right here, if the cart is right here and you're all trying to position, why not like all set up on like this high ground up here where you can spam them from a distance, where you can drop back on top of cart the tank can drop on cart as needed. You can drop at them at any point, and then the rest of you can just sit up here and shoot at them. Symmetra, from a high ground, you may not be able to shoot your pellet. I mean, like you're going to be shooting your pellets just as effectively from the high ground as from the low ground, or maybe mildly less effectively, but you'll have better angles for it. But you can also even more effectively land like a turret bomb than you would be able to from a low ground. Because you have better angles for it, and it'll be much easier and simpler to get a turret bomb off. They won't be able to destroy your turrets as easily if your turrets are up on the high ground. Because also, sorry, just in case that went over your head, I don't know how much you play Symmetra. Turret bomb is when you place all three of your turrets down, and then you TP those turrets into their back line. So you don't necessarily need to stay up on the high ground for the entire fight, but it'll be a good place to start off, and then as the fight progresses, maybe you can reposition. And then also here there's this, to get up to high ground, there's a little platform. There's this little platform. You have movement abilities, so Kiriko can climb up, Symmetra can TP up, Reaper can TP up, Winston can jump up. Moira, theoretically, if she's already on the mid-high ground, could jump up. So really, Moira is the only one who can't instantly get to one of these high grounds. If you're on a Zarya, then like somebody mentioned before, that's just going to come down to positioning better at in between those fights. And you can't, but also note that like sometimes the high ground is going to be too much and maybe unworth it. It kind of depends on the situation. A lot of times they're really good. The other thing is the high grounds they're not only really good for you, but they're really good for the enemy team. So if you are giving up high ground control, then you're giving them an advantage and you're not taking that advantage for yourself. But if you're taking high ground, well, then you're also pressuring them out of good positioning. Sorry, that was a lot of questions and a lot of different things. Did that answer any questions? Is anybody still confused on anything? Any other questions?
No, that was good.
Yep. So, in between this fight, if all of you were on the high ground, well, you'd all be in the same spot and you could shoot at the same thing. Now, because none of you were on this high ground or this high ground would also be fine as well, because none of you are in either high ground. You're all just spread out across the map, and nobody's shooting at the same thing.
Yeah,
makes
makes
sense.
sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It's all about comfort, basically. You got to break the ice of being up there shooting and getting your mechanics up there. But positioning and remembering their payload when we have it turned, because we also tunnel vision in at times. But we can do it because we got the approval now. So it's possible.
All right, so this is an example of ulting in a fight where the fight's pretty much lost already. So we're primaling when we're down 2 and one of your teammates is 1 HP. So primaling when you're basically down 3 people, which means that this primal's very likely to not get any value. I guess you guys did get 1 kill early on, so the Reaper's still coming back. So, but it's still down 2 people. And who else is still alive on this? There's a Symmetra here. So it's 2v4, and they're gonna get the Reaper back sooner than you're gonna get either of your teammates back. So awareness and calling it out as a team. So everybody being aware of it and paying attention to it, and then also having somebody call it out will help, because I would imagine that it's statistically unlikely that this primal gets value. Not impossible, but unlikely. Okay. Yep. So Primal didn't really do nothing. You guys ended up dying, and now we're just gonna have to regroup for the next fight. Oh, are they gonna try to recontest? I wouldn't try necessarily to recontest. I mean, they get it anyways. I mean, oh, that's the Reaper. Never mind. I can't even complain about your Reaper. Yep. So still just kind of look at. I mean, like, you guys are now kind of on a divey. Your divey comp. You swap to Kree. This point might be better to swap up to something a bit more brawly or spammy. I think dive is gonna be the okay one, but I mean, like, it's not impossible to make Monkey work. But they also have a Reaper as well.
Yeah, I think they're in here. We were having comms, and we were just saying we were getting dog walked by their Reaper and Genji. So I was just trying to slow them down, I think.
Yeah, with
I think that's why I went to the Winston in general anyway, was because the team kept saying Genji's fucking us, Genji's fucking us, Genji's fucking us. And I was like, okay, let me go Monkey. Maybe that's gonna help stem the bleeding a little bit.
Okay, D.Va, a little bit more brawly. I think that's gonna be D.Va's gonna be a bit better for Reaper than Monkey. Maybe, like, it's hard here. Like, maybe could be something a bit more brawly. Like,
yeah, sometimes it is hard to make that swap because it's like there's not a perfect one here, but it's like you just gotta pick in like that moment's notice.
Yep, just pick something. Yep, it's not the end of the
I just knew Monkey wasn't it.
Yep, definitely better to swap than not swap. All right, ultimates. They got Blade, they got Ramatra, they got Kiriko. So they got a combo right there. That's Kiriko Blade. That's a pretty good combo. You guys could end up getting more than that. Oh yeah, that speeds up his swings and his movement speed.
See, you gotta do this, bro. You need to go some training, bro. We gotta do that.
Yep, speeds up his swings, so he's killing stuff faster, and his movement speed, which makes him stay alive easier.
God damn.
So that's a pretty decent combo. Maybe something to watch out for. Do you guys have anything that really stops that?
Yeah, I mean, we could coalescence and just focus down the Genji. I mean, it could work.
Yeah, so save coalescence for it. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Try to save abilities, right? Everybody just be careful of it. Watch it. I don't think you really at the moment have any other major counter to it.
Nah.
Hope he gets a Blossom quick enough.
Yeah, like Blossom could be decent if
I don't think he does here though.
Yeah, so
No.
Besides that,
they push this all the way through.
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Right here, you see how we're all in the back, and then Monk is all the way in the front.
Yep.
So in this situation, like, should he have really pushed that Moira, or should we have all stayed back together as a team?
Probably. See,
Because the Ramatra is running in.
See, that's like part of the problem with you guys not being kind of on a dive character and not dive tank and not really having dive DPS with you, is that the team kind of split like that. But yes, I probably wouldn't solo dive something unless you had the opportunity for it, like they were low or out of position, or they're like just you have an ultimate or things like that. But yeah, that means that Ramacha just kind of runs at the team, and Diva is kind of by herself in the middle of the back line.
Because both of them are about to pop ults right now.
Yeah, I
Ramatra
think so.
and Genji.
Yep.
And I may or may have not done. He copied.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Ramatra, weak Kiriko ults. It gets used all right, just because I think they're putting the pressure on you guys, so I don't think that we were ready to push with it. We're not coalescing. Might be a good idea to coal it down.
Well, I just thought that we were already lost, so there's no point in using my ult. I'll just wait for the
so
next.
At this point, there is no next fight if we lose.
Third
right?
point right there.
Yep.
You have to.
That's why it's important to pay
That's
attention
fair.
where's card at, and also like having it called out means that we're not holding on to it. Yeah, because now we're using it, but at this point the fight's already lost, right? That kind of gets to the ults used first versus ults used second. This was held to like the very last second rather than being used earlier on in the fight, and thus it gets a lot less value. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, but most ultimates want to be used earlier on in fights because they get more value that way. If you so not before the fight has begun, because if you use it before the fight has begun, usually, or in between fights, or right after the fight, usually that's when ults get the least amount of value. So don't use it after, in between, or before a fight begins. Generally it's good to use it at the beginning of a fight. Mid fight can be pretty okay. It kind of depends, and then late fight is very situational of when to use it. Late fight, because there's now so much has been resolved by late fight. Like you're up so many, so many kills have gone each direction, abilities used, like so many conditions have entered in, that it's just kind of situational as to whether or not you'd ever use ultimate in a late fight. Not never, but it just kind of depends on the situation. Like here, obviously, use it if they're about to win the fight, right? Like if they're about to win the game, you wouldn't not use it. But also it would have been better to use it. Would have been better to use it start to mid fight.
Understood.
All right, then you're just gonna stagger out. All right. Oh, I'm not in the right. I'm like, where are they all at?
So here we have a little shred that's worked somewhat. So we've been trying to do that. We go from from the corner onto the high ground, and then to the other high ground. So that's what we're going with now with the Symmetra play.
Right.
And it works out, but we still lose this fight.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Okay, what comp are you guys on right now?
Oh shit. That is called a dive brawl.
Yeah, I was gonna say a dive brawl.
Yeah, dive brawl. I mean, that's good. I mean, like still,
Woo!
that's not as bad. That's not as bad as like a brawl spam, because brawl spam is kind of pulling apart itself, but dive brawl is kind of on the same page of like, oh, we're all just going in quickly, so not as bad. And so yeah, there's fine. What comp are they on?
They are.
They're straight brawl, yeah.
Yeah, that's brawl.
Yeah, or like a brawl spam, because they have a Sojourn, and Ramatra is also, remember, kind of that half and half.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
so they're kind of
okay.
a little, like they got a little bit here and there. They also have a little bit of dive, so they're kind of like hybridy a little bit more too. And like they have Genji and Kiriko, who both are, and Ana, all three of them are dive and brawl characters. So
Oh shit.
it's kind of like a little like Floxy in there. Um, so which team here wants to play faster
We do.
and closer? Yeah, probably you
Pro-
guys.
Probably us, yeah.
Yeah, probably you guys. The only thing that might hinder this is maybe the Diva pick, because Diva might struggle a little bit up against the Ramatra if you're just trying to sprint into something. But if you're sprinting into something that's not Ramatra, then that probably works fine. But I don't think the Diva's bad here. But like Junk or Queen or Ryan Hard or
Well, I mean, yeah, but I
Ramatra,
mean, this is
maybe good.
this is at the beginning. At the time, I didn't know he was Ramatra again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yep. Oh, May ends up not going high ground, so that May's just by themselves unloading. What, you just run in down mid or something?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's
that
our
was the
random,
Reaper.
so we couldn't. Yeah, we couldn't really
Oh, that was the random.
stop it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, they all swapped up, so I forgot. All right.
Yeah,
All you guys
of
went to
course.
high ground. May's by myself. Diva's going on something, which is good because they're isolated, so that's fine. No, not noticing
Yo.
low Kiriko. Okay. So kind of split targets. Nobody's looking at the same thing. May's on something different. You guys are on different things. You guys are on different things. Nobody's kind of really focusing. We get on the point. We take high ground control. And then I mean, like that's good. And then we're on point. We're not really running at anything in particular right now. We get the Genji. We're going on the you're on the Ana. Moira's on the Kiriko.
That's our problem. We don't focus each other or
Yeah,
help each other out.
Yeah. So that would probably be one of the main things here, is that like just everybody's on something different. Symmetric gets slept and killed. Oh, she's
Yeah,
1
absolutely.
HP.
Dog walked by that, Anna.
Yep.
So that's we've had this conversation before. I'm like, just because you're taking a 1v1, always have somebody with you, because it's easier to take a 2v1 and get back into the team fight instead of risking a 1v1. And like, he 100% thought he was gonna win that fight against Ana. There's no way he thought he was gonna lose against that, but then he did. And now we're in a situation. Now we just lost a DPS, and Kiri just died, and this is why we lost
Yeah.
the point.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. So
Who killed me? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, guys.
the Sojin did. All right.
That shit happened fast.
So now we are. Yeah, not looking good. So kind of all over the place. Not focusing on. That's really where target priority will, or not target priority, target calling and being on the same page about who is going to come in real
I
handy.
can't wait.
So we usually have a discussion where we're like, "Oh, I can't just turn my back to people because then I'm in the risk of dying to help in the back line."
Yeah.
So how do you?
Well, if you're peeling to go to the back line, then a lot of the times you are making the initiation to jump backwards. So, a lot of the times, like, it kind of depends. Like the question of, do I stay putting pressure on the team, or do I turn around to help peel for my team? Are different questions. If there, and once again, it, like with a lot of questions, it has a complicated answer. If your teammates are going to die by you not turning around, you probably want to turn around, because if you staying on the front line is gonna get 0 kills, and you not turning around is gonna result in your team dying, then that's a net loss, right? Now, if you are like 1 second away from securing a kill, maybe you spend that 1 second to secure the kill and then turn around. If you are noting, like, if nothing's going on, like if you have, like, as Diva, you have more mobility than the Ramatra, so you can turn and peel for your backline very easily. You could, so like in that last fight, D.Va could very easily disengage from the Ramatra and turn and jump on the Ana with the Symmetra, or turn into this room and focus whoever Kiriko is fighting, and has the liberty to do so because Ramatra will take time to catch up to that. And then you've secured a kill, and then you just, as soon as you get that kill, you're going to blow them up because the two people are looking at one person. You blow them up, and then you just turn around and look at the Ramatra again, right? So we go back here to this fight. Oh, wait, we're in. So right around here, D.Va's on Ramatra. Moira is on Kiriko. Symmetra's on Ana. If D.Va uses boosters to boost here, Kiriko dies. If D.Va uses boosters to boost here, then Ana could die. Though Ana's pretty out of the way, I might honestly like put a little bit of pressure on her and then kind of and make her run away and then ignore her if she's running away, just because she's gonna be out of the fight if you pressure her back. But yeah, like if you guys are just turning for a second, it'll kind of depend. Like you have to ask that question: will turning kill you? Right? With D.Va, if you have boosters, you can turn around. It's probably not gonna kill you, especially if you're turning for a second or you're disengaging and you're backing up and peeling for your back line. Things like that. So it kind of depends. It'll be situational, but it's also, if you're never peeling, that's probably a problem, because then you're not really acknowledging the situations where you should be turning. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it'll be a bit
Yes.
situational.
Yeah.
Probably should be focusing on more. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We're coming up near, I think we'll maybe like wrap up like 4:15 or so. So we're coming up near the ends here. Any like other topics or questions that anybody had before the end to cover?
We really just need to focus on focusing and positioning.
Yeah, I think we have some good notes that we just need to try to apply
Sure. Let's
with
go over
yeah,
a bit
who
more
has roles and stuff.
positioning then, to maybe wrap up some of our time. Because we went over high grounds, but we didn't go over much more in positioning. All right. So, if your team is positioned, this is going to be on an individual level, and then also kind of applies to your team as a whole. Oh, excuse me, because it applies to each of you individually. If you are standing right here, and the whole enemy team is standing right here, and you're running away from, you go pow, 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 and you're like, that's a whole team looking at me, and you go to run away, it's going to take 2 seconds to go get behind cover. 3 if we don't have leap. Right. Now, from cover, we can do all the same stuff, but you also can't be shot at. Now you're safe. You can't be shot at from around the corner. All fine and dandy. But in that time it took you to get there, you ended up dying because you took way too long. From cover, you can do all the same stuff. So now you can but you can get behind it in half a second rather than 2 to 3 seconds, which is 4 to 6 times faster. And therefore, good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover. If that's good cover, and the further away you stray from it, the worse off you're going to be. The great thing is the cover's all over the place. You have slopes, like so. You have pillars. You can go in and out between shots. You can reload. You can use corners to do the exact same thing. You can use random objects like the payload. You can use pillar, corner, doorway, corner, doorway. High grounds. We already talked about how high grounds act as cover. Yep, go ahead.
With with the thing, Minis, do you have the code to the Watchpoint Gibraltar game we played last night?
Watchpoint Gibraltar? I didn't put it in there because it was like.
Yeah, it was really
like
really
8
short.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had
I don't know.
a very.
I kind of wanted to talk about that one because there was a game we played yesterday where I was playing Winston and I dived their backline and I killed both of their supports and then lived and then came back over to the main fight and we still lost that fight.
Mhm.
So, there's some things that I'm just like heavily questioning. Like, what the heck is going on? I killed both of their supports, still lived,
Mhm.
and came back and rejoined my team, and we still lost this fight.
It's because we were dying in the back line while you was up in the front.
So I traded a 1v2 and still lived,
Mhm.
but then my
Yeah.
team still lost a 3v, whatever
Well,
over there. So it's like,
sometimes that's kind of how it works. Like sometimes you can get a play where you killed 3 things, but maybe their tank did a play where they killed 4 things, right? And now they got more value out of it. Or by like that's just how it works sometimes. Or maybe you made a really good play and you killed 2, and then one of your teammates accidentally made a oopsies and got 2 of your teammates killed, and now it's even, right? It's because they accidentally like I don't know like ran into an ultimate or something like that, right? So it's kind of
okay,
just the nature of working together as a team, and the nature of just playing a game is that sometimes performance varies, and you can do the right thing and still not get value all the time. But if you do that consistently, and you go and get 2 kills every fight, you will generally see value out of that, unless you're neglecting to ever peel and protect your team, and then you might have to think about, oh, well, maybe I could go a character that's counter dive, or maybe I need to do the soft
yeah.
dives and
So
then peel for
so
supports
a
if
thing
needed.
with me most of the time is that I normally pick my tank pick off of whatever's countering the enemy tank. Like that's like 99% of the
Yep.
time, my tank pick is centered around whatever's not good for the enemy tank, and
Yep.
that's generally about it.
Yep. That's a decent way to approach it. Like I'd encourage maybe like a little bit more thought into like the rest of it. Like is your pick also synergizing with your team? Because you could be on something that counters them and does not synergize with your team at all. Does it synergize with the map you're on? Because you could counter them and be on a bad character for the map that you're on, right? So those are all the things to think about. That's just pretty much that's like 1/3 of the puzzle is what are they running.
Okay,
It
yeah, because
also. Hmm?
last night we played 6 comp games, drawed 1, lost 5,
Mm-hmm.
and like there was another game when we were on Junkertown, and I countered 3 ults really. I ate a Alari playing Sigma, ate an Alari ult, like I mean doing like the nuts into like 17 and 6, and like we lost still. Like it still sits there like, how did we just lose this?
It's because we're getting messed up in the back line by DPSs, or supports are still healing and we just don't kill the supports at all. It happens every
Okay,
time,
so
and
all
we
right,
say something and we never change it.
so
With
that
the
actually
comms
brings me
part,
to another topic. That actually brings me to another topic that I want to talk about too. Sometimes like for the Winston example, right? I killed 2 people up front, right? I
Yep.
killed both of their supports, but then my team was still dying in the back. Okay.
Mhm.
And then there's some examples of like, what's one of the harassing characters that always like gives us an issue sometimes?
How do we stop Hazard?
Thank you, Hazard.
How do you
Hazard
stop
has
that
no
mother?
counters. How do we stop that mother trucker? Like, how does that
headshots,
happen?
baby. Focus shooting. I think we're gonna do it with focus shooting.
Thank you, T. Thank you for bringing that one up. I would have been mad if I didn't.
I was
that.
going to ask, but you were going to Gibraltar. So
Please,
I'll hold off a little bit.
how
How
do
do
we
you
stop
stop
that?
Hazard?
Well, that's the question of how do you. So what composition does Hazard fit into as a character?
Brawl.
Brawler.
Brawl, right? Maybe a little bit of dive with
A
his
little dive.
speed.
Right?
Yeah,
Right, so maybe
He
like
could
a
just
dive,
because
yeah.
he's so fast.
Yeah. So not spam. He doesn't get value by just sitting back at a distance and playing slow, right? So we've identified the 2 compositions that he kind of fits into. He kind of dives in and tries to get close and get on top of you guys. Okay. So now, once again, it'll depend on your map, right? Of what team composition you're playing. If you're on a spam map, which is like a decent bit of some of the maps, right, where you can play spammy, maybe you just play a composition that tries your best to run away and just shoot him as he tries to run at you guys. And if you're playing on a really open map, you might be able to get him before he even gets to you guys. if you are on a more brawly map, well, you guys might need to run something brawly that he can't blow up as easily. Try just jumping into your back line. Focus fire him, peel for him, and you can use abilities to. So this is something I've been playing a lot of Marvel Rivals, so I honestly haven't even played with Hazard as much. Does Ana sleep him when he's using his block? Like it does with
Yes, I believe it
Yes.
does.
yeah. So use defensive supportive abilities and save your abilities for when he's jumping on you guys, right? So save sleep, save what something else that can shut him down easily. I mean,
We figured out that if Sombra hacks him, so he can't use
Mhm.
to go peel back to his team, and then if we have an on our team to
Yeah.
grenade him, he's
hack,
kind of
nade,
useless.
sleep. Yeah, all really good options. Discord with Zenyatta, though Zenyatta would blow up pretty easily, so only do that if you're on like a long range map. And he can spam effectively, right? Lucio, you can theoretically disengage quickly, but that's a kind of niche interaction. Yeah, all different options to think about. So if he is playing with a brawl composition, then just keep your distance and play spam. If he's playing with a divey composition, well, maybe spam isn't going to be the right option, especially if it's not a spam map, because then they're just going to go and jump on top of you. Maybe you try play something tankier that he can't blow up as quickly, and you play peel and make sure that he's not jumping on your back line.
Okay.
Hmm?
Fair enough.
Yep. Yeah, like
Yeah.
take high grounds, make it so that even if he's jumping up to you and your team, that he might not have his whole team with you, right? So even if he's trying to get up to you up on a high ground, he might not be able to engage with his whole team. You can back up. You can try to push him off the high ground. Lots of different options. So
High ground. That's good.
take high grounds.
Yes. We definitely got some notes. We'll work on. I'll have some notes for probably the next session. But I think that's a good start.
All right. Cool. Yeah. Feel free to schedule next session for whenever. I'll try not to get the date wrong this time if I am reminding you guys. Or the time wrong. My apologies for that. And I think that's pretty much it. Any final questions?
No.
Yeah. Would you be able to answer the strength and weakness question?
So,
you still got to review it.
Yeah. Well, strength and weakness. I mean, obviously, it
You
kind of
watched one game.
He did.
Well, that's why I
He
He
asked.
didn't
it.
watch the defense. He
that-
watched.
If you
10
want to be
minutes
a
of
coach
the game.
when he's
I'm
I
just
think that
saying, how can he answer it?
well, let him see then.
Okay.
It'll probably be easier to answer in the next